Ready and rolling.
Let's roll.
Yeah.
Johnnie Purvis, rolling on my interview. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Make sure he's sharp and focus again.
You guys let me know when you're set.
All right, man. Deep breath. And whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Johnnie Purvis. I'm born and raised in Japan. I'm half Japanese, half American. This is my story about cars and growing up in Japan. This is my story about growing up in Japan and growing up around these iconic Japanese cars.
Okay,
My dad was
one more time.
Okay.
A little bit more.
Sure.
A little bit more energy.
All right.
Yeah. You're excited to talk. Let me just tell you about. Not over the top, but
Gotcha.
just let me tell you about this.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Ready? Okay. When you're ready.
My name is Johnnie Purvis. I'm born and raised in Japan. I'm half Japanese, half American. This is my story about iconic Japanese cars and legendary builders. My dad was a big influence on me with cars and motorcycles at a young age. He was a big car guy. You know, he's military guy, heart and soul, born and raised in Kentucky. And we used to, race around these dirt roads and back in the day, and muscle cars kind of era. And he moved up into Japan as a military guy, started dating my mom, and I came along, and was a big influence with cars with me. Got me racing motocross since I was about 10 years old, where I excelled and became a top 3 in Japan in the mini expert class, where I rode for Team Suzuki of Mazda Motors in Okinawa. That was for me big part of racing in Okinawa, and a big passion for me with motorcycles. I'll pause for a second. Well, how do you think that went so far?
Yeah. Cutting.
Cutting. Rolling. Sound speed.
Johnnie Purvis, blabbing interview, take 4.
Okay, you set?
Yeah, you guys said.
Yep, set.
And rolling.
As far as restoring old cars, it's good stuff, man. Just looking for the parts. As far as restoring old cars, that's part of the exciting journey. Well, first off, you're finding a car. It could be a basket case, hopefully not. You want to find something that's fairly intact as far as not rotted out. But then you do have to find a lot of parts, man. It's just part of that journey. You find authentic parts to that car, and if you get lucky, you find something that's a frame and engine matching vehicle, that you can find that's fairly complete. From there, you're just, you're fixing the rust areas because you're looking at something that's 40 years old or 30 years old, whatever the case is. So yeah, it's a pretty big challenge, and you just have to have the time and patience, man. And nowadays, it's a different playing field. Nowadays, it's a different playing field because the internet, man, has changed everything. You go on eBay, you go on Craigslist, and you're searching everywhere around the world now for these parts, which it's pretty incredible, and especially in Japan, right? Where you have this maybe a communication problem because you don't speak Japanese like I do. I speak Japanese, but like in Japan, you might have this issue with communicating with them, with speaking Japanese. But with the internet, it makes it a little bit simpler because now you're dealing with just pictures and money signs and so on and so forth, and looking for parts. But yeah, it's much easier now with sourcing for parts on the internet, man. It's made it a lot easier. But yeah, it's a pretty big challenge restoring a vehicle, especially to your personal likes. And for me, I do want it to be period correct. I do want it to be a correct build as far as the quality goes, the workmanship goes, the gaps and just the steel. I just want it to be tight, man. That's just how I want to live my life, and that's how I want my cars to be. So my goal would be to bring in these cars from Japan, and we restore them and build them at our shop here, our speed shop here in Hawaii, and we can flip them from there. Now we can flip them to, to the UK. We can flip them to California. We can flip them to Australia. We can flip them wherever they want to go in the world, man, because the buyers are everywhere connected by the internet nowadays. So that's a beautiful thing. So that's my intention, you know, is just to search for these cars, hopefully, you know, bring them back as intact as possible from Japan and do the build out here in Hawaii. You know, we got a great team here, great builders. We'll just work on it here, man. So that's part of the journey. That's as far as restoring, racing, drifting. Talk about your passion for any of these.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So like, you've got American muscle cars, classic American muscle cars, right?
Yeah.
Mustangs and
Sure.
V8 engines and all that. What sets these Japanese domestic cars apart, and why is there such an affinity for them? Don't they just seem more compact, and are they not as muscly?
Well, yeah, you know, it's American muscle cars are American muscle cars, man. They're fantastic cars, and I love muscle cars myself. I've owned many, you know, vintage Chevys, 49 Chevy pickup trucks. I've had, you know, 51 Ford shoeboxes that I brought in from Spokane, Washington. I mean, I brought cars in from everywhere in the mainland. I love cars. So, yeah, the muscle cars are way different from the Japanese domestic cars, these JDM cars that we're talking about and that we're passionate about as well. But, you know, it's two different genres, man. I mean, obviously a car builder that loves cars is, you know, somebody that loves cars, man. And I'm one of them. But for me, my focus, because of my roots and because of where I'm from and because of these cars that were iconic to me personally, and I grew up around these cars, and I heard them personally whipping down the road, and I watched these cars, you know, as a 10-year-old, as a 15-year-old, you know, and you know, to be able to sit in these cars as your older cousin, you know, had a fabulous car that you're drooling over. For me, that's something that's etched in my brain, you know, and that's why my focus is on these JDM cars. And sure, there's a distinct difference between these heavy, big muscle cars with big ass motors, you know, that rumble in the street. That's great. That's fine and dandy, and they're fast and they're quick. But these Japanese cars, man, they're light, they're easy to tune. You can hop up these little engines where they're putting 600-700 horsepower out of them, and you want to put that against a muscle car that's got a lot of weight. You might see a little bit of a difference on the street there. You know, it's they're pretty quick too. So yeah, you know, it's two different things, man. You're comparing a you know, an apple with another apple. You know, and they're both gems to me. You know, it's an interesting thing about that with the muscle cars and American cars, because Japan's been a huge influence in America, right? And America has been a huge influence in Japan, where, you know, you go to Japan and us, like myself, we're looking for these iconic Japanese cars, you know, whether it be an old Bluebird or a Skyline or a 240Z or a you know, whatever it is I'm looking for. But it's interesting when I speak a lot to these Japanese builders too, and they have a flip side to them where they're interested in these American cars, where they like the old Chevelles and they like the old El Caminos, and, you know, they like these old American cars, the old Chevy and old Fords, you know. And so you see that interest in the Japanese builders. So it's a flip of that, where our culture in America has crossed over to the East, and, you know, my culture from Japan, from the East, has crossed over to the West, you know. So it's interesting yin and yang with that, with the builders here. So yeah, you know, being a car enthusiast myself, you'll see muscle cars, vintage American cars in my garage, as well as many Japanese iconic vehicles in my garage, man. So that's how I feel about that, yeah. Okay, as far as, what was it? Yep. As we're rolling, George, if you can remind me a few points or whatever that is, that's cool. Yeah, so we'll just make this my last take here.
Johnny, take 5.
Sound speed?
Johnny Purvis is gibberish, take 5.
Just put this like that. And you still recording?
Oh, no, we focus.
You're still recording?
No.
We gotta do the sleep one more time.
Rolling.
Right about here, like this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Johnny, take 6.
Sound speed?
Johnny, take 6, because Kota messed up our take.
Take it.
He's a good guy. All right, so we're gonna let him go. Okay, here we go. So, shucks, we were talking about, so, you know, obviously in this car world, man, in this car culture, you have people that are dedicated to racing. You know, you got dedicated guys that are just want to build this race car to take it to the track to do quarter miles, and you got guys that want to build a drift car that go and do some crazy drifting, and that's their life, you know, and they live for that, which is great. And you got builders, you got collectors, so you got a whole faction of people that come together for this. You know, you got enthusiasts, obviously, you know, people that just have garage queens in their cars, you know, and I'm personally not a garage queen type of keeper, and I do love to build cars and actually ride them and, you know, and feel them and enjoy them, man, and that's what life is about, you know. I mean, you know, why not use your best china that you have now? Why are you saving your best china in your cupboard for the special occasion when right now it's a special occasion, you know? So that's how I feel about these cars, man, is you build them to use them and you build them to ride them, yeah. And there's a whole bunch of people that we've come across on this journey to Japan and America, you know, builder collectors, enthusiasts, and the works, man, you know. So it's a great part of the journey of meeting these people. And a lot of these guys that we met in Japan are basically ghosts, you know. They're the who's who building these cars and collecting these cars and racing these cars. And a lot of the guys we met, you know, just could be like a president of a trucking company, this guy, Miyai-san. And the most humblest guy around, you know, but everybody's bowing down at him at his company, you know. But him personally, just a humble, awesome human being, and he loves these iconic cars of his heyday, of his childhood. And now he can afford to build them and collect them and buy a genuine Hakosuka GTR, you know, that's $120,000, $30,000 or whatever it is, and he's got a few of them sitting in his garage, you know. And he's got the number 3 to number 6 cars that come out of the factory sitting in his garage. So yeah, you know, he's taken that passion that he has and he lives it, man. So that's what it's about. That's what it's about for me. Drive it. Build these cars. Drive it. Don't save it. Drive it.
Nice.
That's my last take 7.
Yep.
Johnny Purvis. A lot of these guys over there in Japan that we met.
One more time. A lot of these guys.
A lot of these guys in Japan that we met, these builders, these enthusiasts, these collectors, you know, a lot of these guys, man, they were just ghosts, you know, like nobody knew who they were outside of this little small world that they have, you know, but they're the who's who in this business, you know. They collect these cars that are iconic, man, of their childhood and their heyday, you know. So, and you know, some of these guys, man, are just the humblest guys that you would never assume would have these cars in their garage, and they've done their best in their life to succeed monetarily to be able to afford this. And instead of, you know, buying a Lambo or buying a 911, 930 turbo, whatever it is, or something that's in this day and age the epitome of having money and having a fast-ass car, they chose to buy and collect and build a 1971 Hakosuka GTR. And that's where their soul is, you know. And, you know, for instance, this guy that we work with in Japan, Miyai-san, has a trucking company, a very successful, humble guy. And, you know, he said he's had Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Porsches and so on and so forth, but the car that he loves to build and loves to ride and loves to collect are his Hakosuka GTRs. And this guy, he owns like the number 3, the number 6 cars that come out of the factory, you know, the 2-door Hakosuka GTRs, man. So he's somebody that was very humble and humbling to me. For me to be on this journey, man, was just spectacular to meet some of these iconic people, legendary in their own right, but ghosts. So yeah, man, it is real. Cool. That's good for me. Yeah.